Welcome to Oak City Church, a family of learners, lovers, and givers sent. For more information, visit us online at oakcitychurch.com. Let us know if we can help you in any way. Thank you for listening.
Please stand. Today's reading is from Romans chapter 8, verses 26 through 30. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows what is the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God.
And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. For those whom he foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, in order that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. And those whom he predestined, he also called. And those whom he called, he also justified. And those whom he justified, he also glorified. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks, guys. Good morning. Thanks for being here this morning. If you are new to Oak City Church, you're joining us online for the first time. We're in a series that we have done most years in August called Where is God When Life Happens, where we spend some time talking through just different things that people have gone through in their life and how that relates to certain scriptures, maybe in a way that is easier to see as it's been lived out than it is to understand with just me preaching on a Sunday morning. So this is Isaac Vargas. Everybody say hello, Isaac. Hello. And so we'll just go ahead and get started. Isaac, where are you from?
That's a loaded question.
That's why I asked it.
So depending on what time of my life you're asking me that, I would normally say...
well, why do you normally get that question? In your
complexion is not the normal complexion for this area.
I think a big part of Isaac's story that we're not going to talk about a lot is that he's brown.
Yes,
I mean, that's
shocking.
People ask you that question a lot. Where are you from?
Yeah,
but I really do want to know where you're from.
Yeah, I mean, I usually say I'm from Apex, North Carolina. I've been there since I was 6.
And they're like, where are you really from?
Yeah, then it's like, oh, and your family? So, and I'm like, yeah, they're from New York. And you're like, and their ancestors. So I'm Puerto Rican. My parents were born there. I was born in New York, then lived in Puerto Rico for a couple years. But
so, how many people know Isaac fairly well? Does born in New York explain a few things? Does that make sense? This makes a little sense, right? I mean, you weren't there for very long, but I feel like you could do New York.
I could do New York.
Yeah.
I don't want to live there.
Yeah.
But I could do it.
Yeah. I think you might be more New York than Apex. Okay.
No comment.
So you're born in New York, but you do move to Puerto Rico like you're a baby. You moved to Puerto Rico for a few years.
Yeah, I think I was probably 2. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but we lived in a little town called Arecibo, which is like upper north part of Puerto Rico, and lived there until I was about 5 or 6, right before my parents split, or right after, my parents split up. Then we moved up here to live with my grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, and my whole mom's side of the family.
But your dad wasn't a great experience for you. Was he? Did he move here?
No. So we lived in Puerto Rico for a while. My biological father was not a great father. My older brother has more of an experience with that. I was kind of ignored. But without getting too much into that, he stayed in Puerto Rico for a while. But he's lived everywhere. He moved to Florida afterwards.
Gotcha. But you moved here with your mom.
Yep.
Because?
Yeah, my grandma lived up here. So my mother and my father split up. I was, get a little backstory. We were Catholic, moved up here, became Southern Baptist, like that. So I don't know if that
Catholic, really Catholic.
Yeah.
Didn't your mom? What's your mom's name?
Oh yeah, my mom's Maria.
And she has a sister named Maria?
Maria. And another sister named Miriam. And their mother's name is Miriam. A lot of variety.
Well, that's really, that's Catholic.
I seem to be functioning pretty well. Yeah, and I was, sprinkled on as a baby and and baptized Southern Baptist, so I got my bases covered. You know.
But everybody lives in Apex. I mean, you got to Apex because like an uncle moved here with IBM, but then everybody followed, and you guys lived like in the same
Same block,
street.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we lived probably a couple blocks from Apex Baptist Church, which is like the nice downtown strip, all 30 seconds of that downtown. And my aunt Maria, which is my mom's the oldest of 5, so she lived like 3, 4, 5 houses down with my cousin Ozzy and Janelle. We lived in my grandmother's house. My uncle lived a couple streets down. He was an IBMer. That's the reason we all went to North Carolina. Some of you know IBM has like the big complex there. Now I'm an IBMer actually, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so we all lived right next to each other and started going to Apex Baptist Church.
And so, and you were good with Apex Baptist Church. Like you learned about Jesus in Apex Baptist Church, and you love Jesus. This works for you.
Yeah, I mean, I jumped right in. I remember thinking I was like cool and bad because I was like the brown guy in a sea of white. And I was not. I was the biggest goody two-shoes you've ever met. I did everything I was told. I went to church, did everything it told me. I feared God, I feared hell. It was funny hearing stories about people like drinking in their dad's closets or something. Or you're like, what? And I'm just like doing nothing wrong. But I thought I was cool. I wasn't cool, but I thought I was.
How many of you guys had AOL Messenger? Oh my gosh. Your AOL Messenger screen name?
Young man of God.
You got saved twice?
I got saved twice. That's correct, yes.
This is, I feel like, not to crack on Southern Baptist, because I think there's a lot of good things, but like this is a very
There's some cracks there. Yeah. Anyway, Southern Baptist, love the people, love the church. You know, everyone's got, well, not everyone's, but a lot of good intentions there. But I had a lot of fear in me, and I think I was always a Christian. I always believed. I didn't have like a first moment. I got baptized there when I was younger. And then later on in life, we went to a lot of church camps and ministries. We went to one summer camp, and the pastor, it was a huge building. The pastor, I remember, was telling us about the fear of God. And then he was like, you hear that knocking in your heart? That's Jesus wanting to come in. It's like, or something else. But I got saved again because I didn't want to go to hell.
How many people got saved twice?
So,
How many people got saved every summer at camp?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts.
I didn't get baptized a third time, though. So,
You grew up. You grew up in like your youth pastor is a guy I knew a little bit. Chuck Thompson's a great guy, and he was a great guy. So this isn't the point to paint that out as bad, but there is a atmosphere of certainty about it. There is a little bit of a small town, religious Baptist dogmatic certainty, no dancing.
yeah, I mean, like if you got married there, I think there was like the mother and the son, or the father and the daughter could have a dance, but no other dancing, right? I remember going out to movie theater parking lots and passing out pamphlets for Passion of the Christ when I wasn't old enough to watch it. I remember boycotting the Golden Compass without knowing anything about it. I wasn't allowed.
Harry Potter?
Wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter. And then my stepfather, who, not exactly a Christian guy, but love him, he bought a Harry Potter video game, I think, just to like mess with us. And that was like oh, look at that. And,
What did you do?
We looked at him playing the game. It was weird. But, eventually we started playing. But I remember I had like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, which is like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering, and I don't know what that was. And I had to like destroy those cards. Like that wasn't allowed. But we were the family passing out the Jesus Loves You on Halloween candy, right? So, but it wasn't like, Chuck Thompson, fabulous person. Most of the people I loved. And loving family, and everybody was very good to each other. You just that was the culture you were in. Nobody really questioned it. This is what we're doing, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, and there are some things. This is Ken's first theology class, 101 class that you should take, that we should be certain about our faith. But then we increase the box of things that we're absolutely certain about. And I think we do that for the wrong reason. It ends up having consequences. And I think it really plays into what happens next in your story. So you have a cousin named Ozzy, and you and Ozzy and your brother Ishmael, which is a whole. The other day I'm like, wait, so your parents named you Isaac and Ishmael? Like, did that not? Did they not like him?
And the description of his name is accurate in the Bible. If you know, you know.
And Kyle was the fourth. There's the fourth. Who's Kyle? He's not Isaac's brother.
No, he's another cousin, but they're all
Okay.
on my mom's side. So we all lived like 2 minutes from each other growing up, and that's who we hung out with. Like, usually you're like, oh, I got family coming in, I can't hang out. And I was like, I got a friend I want to hang out with, so I'm tired of seeing you guys, you know. So it was basically all siblings living right on top of each other.
And you four are inseparable.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And Ozzy's kind of like the de facto leader. He just kind of leading the way. He was like that.
So when did we pick up this story? He's a senior in high school at Apex. He's a student body president. You said he's like the North Star of your family. He's accepted into NC State. You guys are going to go start a video game. You're all going to follow him to NC State and start a video game company.
Yeah, I blame him for my state fanhood. So, but yeah, that was the plan. We were all going to be computer scientists or programmers or something along those lines. And he kind of glued us together. So Kyle, I'm the youngest of the four. Kyle's a year older. My brother is the oldest of the four, but him and Ozzy were about the same age. They were both like 17 at the time.
And so September 2006, you go to it's like a weekend. It must be a weekend. It's not like a week-long summer camp.
It's Fall
It's
Rush.
one of the-
Fall Rush for a church camp at Camp Oak Hill.
So they're up at Camp Oak Hill, and
Yeah, so this is a camp we've done years and years. Go out to, for like, I think like 2 or 3 days, we go out to this Camp Oak Hill. And it's just a church retreat, right? You have your Holy Spirit come in you, and then you have fun events and fun things. And on September 9th, September 9th was the day. That's actually my brother's 18th birthday. That morning, we get up, we go to breakfast, like mess with my brother because it's his birthday, and then we rush out to do the thing we have done every single year, which is get on the zip line, which goes into a little lake. So that's like our favorite activity.
you said you raced to see who would get there first and
Yeah,
go first.
yeah.
And
Ozzy and Kyle were the fastest. Kyle ran cross country and track, and Ozzy was just more athletic, and I'm not the athletic person you see before you now. So, I was the slowest, and they got it there first. So my brother and I kind of waited for them to go, and the way it was built, if this little table was the lake, then you were the zip line, and then right on this side we waited. So you just kind of wait here, and you run over here, and the zip line goes down. They come to you, give you their harness, and you go around and just go up the zip line. We've done it every year for, 9 years or something like that. So they go up. We're waiting on the other side, and Kyle and Ozzy go up. And generally when we do the zip line, you straddle, if it's a harness, some people are used to hanging up on something. But this was a harness one. It was like 40, 50 feet up. And there's about 10 feet of gravel between the tower and the lake. So usually you just go zip right down on, you take your harness off. But we usually did something where we strapped it in the back so we can go Superman style. And, they trained some teenagers or something to put those harnesses on us. And unfortunately, however they hooked up Ozzy's was incorrect. So when he actually went down and the tension pulled, the harness snapped. And so he fell right on the gravel.
describe those next few minutes and hours.
Okay, yeah. So, he fell. I don't know how deep we want to go into this. He did his scream of, I'm falling, basically. And I ran over there. I was one of the first ones there. The only person there before me was a good father at the church, a good guy at the church who was actually rock climbing because there's a rock climbing wall right next to it. So I see Ozzy there. He's kind of, moaning, but not, you don't know if he's conscious or not. He's kind of just moaning and trying to get up, and there's some blood. And he was wearing a helmet, but Mr. Gouslin was the guy there, and he was trying to get me to not look. I'm 15 at the time, so he's trying to get me to back up, and I'm not really sure what to do. My brother runs in the other direction, and so I'm like, I don't know what he's doing. But I thought I was being helpful because I was the first one there. I was like, I'm going to do something. I think a lot of guys, too, think, like, if there's something that's going to happen, I'm going to be the one that does something. This is what I'm going to do. I have a whole plan. I did nothing. I looked at him, and then I went to, like, a patch of grass, and I started praying. Prayer is powerful, but you want to do something more hands-on. So they're trying to handle him. Kyle was on the zip line next to Ozzy. So he's screaming, trying to get out of the harness in the water. And when he finally comes around, he joins me in prayer. then the next thing I know, an ambulance comes. So it actually turns out that my brother was the smart one and went to go get help. And so he actually was able to get an ambulance on the scene. Ambulance came, and on the ambulance was Ozzy's mother. And Ozzy's mother had never come to a fall rush that I'm aware of. So she wanted to come to this one because he was about to graduate, and this was going to be his last fall rush. But anyway, so they get on the ambulance, and they drive off. And Chuck Thompson, who was my youth pastor, I love that man to death. He's a great person. He actually runs like a prison ministry. Again, neither here nor there. He gets us in a van, and I've never seen this man sin before, but he was going like 120 miles an hour on these like nothing roads, because it's country roads out there. And my brother's got a phone. He's calling Ozzy's dad, his stepdad, and calling my parents and telling them kind of what he saw. And we finally end up at this little, tiny hospital. And when we walk in, I see Ozzy's mom just sitting down. And she just tells us he's in a better place. And I heard he's in a better place. He's in the hospital. Great place, It's exactly where he needs to be. And but then it took me a second to realize what everybody else immediately realized, was that he wasn't with us. So, it's kind of a hit.
You guys, after not long, you end up going back to camp, and people have you. Kyle stays in the car, right? Because you said you wished you.
Oh no! So at the hospital, we're there for a little bit, like an hour, a couple hours. I don't know. Time kind of fluctuates in those situations. But eventually, we do go back to the campgrounds, and we go. Like my parents show up, like people show up from the family. But we go back to the campgrounds, and another church leader, Matthew Broughton was there, and they're like trying to bring people together, trying to give them the news, trying to pray, do whatever they need to do. My brother stayed in the car. Kyle came out with me, and so we went out there, and people were praying and trying to put their hands on you, and you're still in a state of shock. I was still in a state of shock, and I didn't really know what was going on. I knew it happened, but
yeah. But people said some stuff to you that really bothered you.
Yeah, you just witnessed something happen to the person that was your de facto brother leader of your group, of your troop. Ozzy, that summer, we had gone a church camp called Camp Crossroads, and randomly told us he loved us all. And we always told, but it was just weird. And then he broke up with his longtime girlfriend because he said God called him to do other things. And then we went to Puerto Rico for the first time together, at an age where we can actually, hang out and do stuff. So that was just like a loaded summer where we just had a lot of time together, and we all knew Ozzy was the leader. We're going to do stuff with him, and he was student body president, just a popular guy, but he also a Christ-led guy, at 17, and we just kind of looked up to him. So then anyway, that happens at a church camp, and we get there, and people are praying, but then afterwards, people are like, God meant for this to happen. God is going to bring a lot of people to Christ because of this. And I just remember being like, huh? Why even? What are you talking about? Right? I'm not looking for that answer just yet. But that's what people came up to me with certainty, just saying, this is on purpose, and I think there was good intentions there. I don't know if it was about them or anything else, but I got a lot of questions. I got a lot of statements like that. There's a reason for this, and it's likely because a lot of people are going to come to Christ. And all I could think was, I'm sure a lot of people would have come to Christ if he was alive, because he was just that kind of guy. But I didn't really argue with him. I just kind of heard them, and
there's a lot, and that could go in a lot of different directions. So the verse that the Rays read is Romans 8:28, which actually is surrounded by uncertainty. It's we don't even know how to pray, so the Spirit gives us groans, and then it's God works for the good of those who loved him or are called according to his purpose, and then it talks about, but all that stuff is so that we'd be conformed to the image of Christ. But we have a tendency to pull the middle verse out and say, see, it's going to be good. Let it be good. And so there's that. There is a when you have a culture of certainty where you're certain about things that you probably don't need to be certain about, like that extends into this where you need to be certain about this too, like where you can be certain about all the things and where you have a hard time dealing with uncertainty. And there's a reason that we develop cultures like that deals with identity and what Katie was talking about, dependence, and it's hard to depend. But for you, the whole thing is like there's just kind of like a break. And as you said, they were well-intentioned. I think in those moments, what we try and now talk about this towards the end, what we try and do in those moments of grief is exert control over a situation that by definition is not able to be controlled and out of control, when what we should do is be out of control, but instead we try and exert control, and it just ends up being harmful to the person for whom there's no control in this situation. But for your story, like that did something, that whole incident, what happened, how people responded to it, some combination of all those things really sent you in a different direction. So what did that do to your faith?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to know that I was the kid in school that when the teacher was talking about dinosaurs, I was like, I don't know about this, like, why do crocodiles have so many teeth? If you ever watch an Adam Sandler movie. I'm not recommending that. But anyway, I remember writing on a paper, just doubting evolution, or as we called it, evolution. There was just a lot of that, and I was all gun-ho for it, and whether, it's a certainty or whatever, it's just there's a group of people that live a certain way, and you just, throw them aside. And so I was that guy, and when that happened, when I was faced with it, when somebody wanted to give that to me, this is it. And, it shook me to kind of not care. I was a bit of an emotional child, too. My brother used to call me the Pink Hulk because I would get angry and upset sometimes. But I just, emotionally and religiously and spiritually, I just kind of grew a sense of apathy because I didn't really want to argue with these people. I had some knowledge, but I was a young kid. I didn't really know what to say or do about it. But I just didn't want to think or care to engage with them anymore. So I still believed in God, mainly because I didn't want to go to hell. That was like the number one reason. Still a reason, but at the time it was definitely the number one reason. And I just stopped engaging. Like I stopped being. I had to change my AOL screen name. You know what I mean? Like that had to change. And I didn't focus on God or church. I didn't want to be around, members of church. I still did some church stuff. I still kind of followed the motions, mainly because of that incentive I just mentioned. But I was different, more apathetic and less caring about church and people.
You got in a relationship with a Christian girl, your junior year of high school that lasted a couple years. But, at the end of the day, you realized you were pouring yourself into something else that was an idol, in essence.
Yeah, I guess you could say whatever I lost in terms of my relationship with God and otherwise, I kind of poured into a girl at the time. And I only really realized that it was an idol when she broke up with me, and that led to, some more troubles down the road.
Yeah.
Right, so you want to go into those troubles a little bit?
Well, if you were here a couple weeks ago when my son was up here and talked about freshman Ramsey, which is a word that I said I never wanted to hear again, we had sophomore Isaac at NC State. Was not a great year for you.
Yeah, I mean, when you pour everything into something and it fails, like everything usually does, you kind of look for anything else. And so my confidence and just everything that was me, I poured into, or I got from other things. So at the time, it was my sophomore year, and I got it from short relationships, I guess we can say, right? I got it from whatever I could do my sophomore year. And I kind of lived a life where I was still Christian, as I told myself, but I lived in sin. And I think part of that journey was just, I didn't know what to grab. My confidence was shot, but I knew that I wanted to learn more about the Bible, but at the same time, I wanted to live however I wanted to live, because I just stopped caring. So sophomore Isaac was a big deal. And
I had seen a quote Friday morning. We got back together final time Friday morning from Anne Lamott. Said, everyone's screwed up, broken, clingy, and scared. Even the people who seem to have it together. They're much more like you than you would believe. So try not to compare your insides to their outsides, which I think is a great quote. And in context of that time in your life where you presented this external competence, but in the inside you were a mess. You still had the Baptist in you, so you got involved with the church plant.
The Baptist doesn't leave. I mean, I don't wear shorts to church, people.
And again, I don't want to, I mean, there's a lot of good things about that. The purpose of this is not to crack on Baptists, but.
I had to put my nice pants on up here.
You were just kind of playing both sides of it. You know, you said if you would go to a small group or a Bible study and someone would present some level of certainty to you, you'd give it to them. But if a professor challenged something where you were like, that's not true, like challenged Christianity in a way that you knew wasn't true, you would give it to them.
Yeah, I think people tend to know me as a contrarian of sorts, if you know me. But I think that experience after Ozzy died and the certainty made me deep dive into just intellectual studies. So it was a history major, religious studies, and English were like my minors. And I focused on the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. Also, I told you this, Roman history, because I'm a man, and who doesn't do that? And a little bit of the Civil War, just so that I could be contrarian to people around here. So, I got stuff up there. But anyway.
Isaac's a lawyer, if you're not aware of that.
And I'm a lawyer.
It's all making sense.
But I think part of that was I wanted to reach God and the Bible from a scholarly viewpoint, not from a spiritual.
You think you were protecting yourself emotionally?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was apathetic. So, well, at least I told myself I was. So I didn't want to feel, I didn't want to be saved a third time. I wanted to think up here for myself for really the first time and figure out what this is all about. So, I studied evolution, I studied the Bible, I read it. I didn't read the Bible from, I forget what the word is, but you look at it knowing Jesus comes, so like you can put that in the Old Testament. I just looked at it as people are writing this at this time, right? So I try to be as scholarly as possible. And I really wanted to be able to go to anybody that came up to me and said, Jesus or God's doing this for a reason or whatever, and I wanted to mess with them from an intellectual standpoint. That was my drive. I wanted to be smarter than everybody in the room. And I wanted to, just shake them, make them think. Because I was shaken, and I had to think. But then that led to, I got so good at it, I got good at convincing myself that all of my behavior was, in line with some regard to the Bible.
I guess you were coming up with your own version of certainty that would keep you from having to have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, it's funny how that kind of came around like that. Yeah. So, and I kind of lived my life rationalizing it, but still doing church activities. So that sophomore year where I was kind of living free, if you want to call it that, I was also in a launch group for a church, that was up there. And I was heavily involved in that. And yeah, then I remember campus preachers would come out and I would get involved in that and be like, no, God loves, and we'd have this whole thing. And at the same time, I'm living whatever life I want to live over here. So I definitely was playing both sides, but it's like an internal battle that's always going on.
Yeah. So. You graduated from state, you went to Carolina Law, you met Ashley, and she fixed everything.
Yep, my wife over there, I met her my first year of law school. We went on a date. It did not end well.
Did you get friend zoned?
I got zoned. I think if you've met Ashley, she's amazing, and she kind of just was like, I don't think our convictions line up. I think that's what she told me one time. And of course, that's because the first date, she's like, I'm a Christian. I'm like, Jesus? Who? And I'm a contrarian. I couldn't shut it off. So then 2 years later, we develop a friendship. And
yeah, you're in law school. You said law school is a bit like high school, but everybody can go to the bars, and yes. It's just a lot of drama in it. It's your law school group is 90 people, and Ashley and you were in the same group, so you are around each other and the same people.
Yeah.
A lot, and over a couple years, you develop a friendship.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's the whole class was like 250 to 300 people, and you're split up into three like Harry Potter style colleges. So it came full circle.
Isaac didn't understand.
I didn't. It wasn't for me.
Never read Harry Potter. Yeah.
But and when Ashley and I were in that college together, and so you see each other every day, And we do this thing called bar review, which is like a joke, because there's like a journal, but there's also going to a bar and drinking. So we did that like every Thursday night. So sometimes we'd see the same people there, and then I remember Ashley was actually part of this like Christian like college group, and she tried to get me into that, and arrogant Isaac was like, nah. So, but yeah, we developed a friendship. We had similar friends, and we just kept hanging out, and law school happened, failed relationship here or there, but she was always there, and we always developed a relationship.
And slowly, I mean, your beliefs were there. You were justifying your behavior, but really slowly you started to repent.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you just started to change. Like you agreed with God that your behavior didn't line up with your beliefs, and you started to.
I mean, it's hard for me as a lawyer to say I agree to anything, but there was an inner battle. But I stabilized towards the end of college, and then in law school I was more stable in terms of my behavior. But I still rationalized a lot of stuff, and I think what that change would be is that instead of me just my rationale being, oh, this is what this means, this is what that means, it was like, this actually, like, I can feel like this is wrong, or I can feel, and so my arguments would get deeper and harder. And I needed, I think, like a physical manifestation of myself outside of myself to argue with, because I was just arguing up here all the time. And if you're, engaging in some kind of poor behavior and you feel guilt about it, the rationalization side of you is probably gonna win out. And so whether it's an accountability partner or whatever, you need somebody else there. And in developing a friendship with that lady over there who I keep pointing at, she was like that. In many ways, she's my intellectual superior, and as many of you know. And she was able to have those arguments with me. And whether it's just we're just talking about what the Bible means, right? What does it mean to be a drunkard? What does it mean this part, this, that, or the other? And at one point, she looks at me and she says, you say that, but I don't think you believe any of it. I was like, I think I love you, because that's exactly right, and I think that's how she came to realize that we had a lot of the same convinctions. The beliefs were there.
You said you would make big, long arguments, and she could condense your arguments
into
condense like 3
it,
words.
Yeah, and I can, as you see, I can prattle on. Words are fun. And she could say 2 or 3 words, and I'd be like, yeah. Shut me up. But,
and that was a lot of how I don't know that you got back, you got forward.
I got forward. I would say to get back, you asked me this question about was I a stronger Christian then or was I a stronger Christian now? And I don't know if we're at that stage, but.
Well, I asked if you felt nearer to God now or when you were 15.
Yeah, and it's different. Again, you're not going to get me to give you a straight answer on stage. I was trained not to do that. Back then, I followed everything that I was told to follow. It was more dogmatic, but I think it was still real in many ways, but it was a lot of fear-based. Now, I learned a lot. I got to where I needed to get to, but in having conversations, not just with Ashley, but with other people, and just growing and starting to realize, just either independently or through conversations or whatnot, that I am not living the life that I should be living in many ways. I think there's something in that it's not fear-based. It's, okay, I'm not as smart as I think I am. You're an intellectual superior. So that means my rationale isn't as good as I think it should be. Maybe I am wrong. And then when you start thinking maybe I am wrong, I think there's this thing that says the more you know about something, the more you realize you know very little about that something. And the less you know about something, the more you think you know, right? And I went through that wholeheartedly. And the more I read about the Bible in the beginning, the more I thought I knew about everything. When I was young, that was me, arguing about dinosaurs and whatnot. But now I've read so much more. I know way more than I knew back then. And now I realize how little I am and how little I know.
Yeah.
And talking with someone I'm sorry, Ash, you are the person that I talk to a lot. Like that, it just made me realize how dumb I am in so many ways. And that helped me realize, it just came face to face with that physical manifestation of myself kind of in her to say, you're an idiot. Or maybe shouldn't say that, but you're dumb and you're just rationalizing everything and you're just playing this game.
Yeah,
And that made me closer to God.
We'll get back to this right at the end, but your story is in a lot of ways a microcosm of the book of Job, and that's where Job ends up. So we'll be back there in just a second. You did make a comment at one point that and grace was there the whole time. Like you did get a good fundamental Baptist understanding of the grace of God and what the gospel is, and that forgiveness and grace. You made this comment the first time we talked. Always led you back. And that you always had an easy time forgiving people because you knew you were forgiven.
Yeah, I think the grace was always there. Like, the series is called Where is God When Life Happens? And when people tell you after literally witnessing one of your closest family members die in front of you, this happened for a reason. You get mad. Or you were going to react in some way. And I think people get away from God. I don't think I got away from God as much as I got away from people and how people see and look at God, which is what led to me being arrogant and wanting to be smarter than those people. But I always knew God was there. I just didn't want to face it, and I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be smarter than everybody.
Where was God on September 9th, 2006?
He was right there, and I know he was. I can look back on it, and I see that, and I feel it. But yeah, he was always there. I mean, even after that, right, anytime I would be rationalizing behavior, you said a professor would say something about the Bible that I thought was irreverent or just wrong or was leading people down the wrong way, and I would talk to him and meet with him right there. And then I'd go on sinning a little bit later. But and then there's an opportunity to be a launch group at a church, and I was right there, and I was like, let's do it. So he was always there.
You mentioned in our conversations and this morning that his mom was there, and that was the only time she was there, which was hard. And yet, I found the article where they interviewed her, and her comment to the news was, "Everyone's going to die. Ozzy brought joy for 17 years to many people, but it was his time to go." She said her son was full of life, always lit up the room. She said she doesn't blame anyone for his death. It's hard to see your son dying. I was there, and I was able to talk to him and let him know that I was there. Again, I'm not trying to put a bow on it. It's hard that she was there. But at the same time, it's a gift that she was there.
Reason we went to Apex Baptist Church. She's one of the most stable figures in our family and a powerful and amazing woman. And
what should people have said?
I think if somebody just came up and was just real and said, this is devastating. I don't know why this happened, but I'm here and God's here. And that's all you need to say. I think that would have kept me from going down a path of being like, I need to be smarter than you because you're full of it. Yeah. I think that would have been just comfort and something different than fear, something that was just real.
Yeah. Yeah, I would guess that you were going to go down the path of breaking down that uncertainty, and you're such a contrarian of it flipping on you in a different way. But there is and part of the reason that we've done this series time after time is because we tend not to do well with grief. What happens in the moment is, as I said earlier, we try and put ourselves feel better about, maybe we're trying to help you be under control, but what someone really needs is someone to join them in the reality that this is completely out of control. A guy said to me years ago, he worked with homeless people, and he would say, I can't pay your light bill, but I can sit here with you in the dark. And a lot of times, that's just what people need. They don't need answers, they need presence. And we don't like that because we end up in the situation where it's out of control as well, and we just don't like that. But that's what people need. And grief, I don't think that I've suffered, not with people close to me. It's like something happens and it's like an open wound, and depending on how bad it is, this is like a gut shot wound, and it's going to take a long time to heal, and every time the wind blows on it, it's going to hurt like crazy, and every time someone brushes by, presence, just to be with people that got it and loved Ozzy the same way you loved Ozzy, because that was the only comfort.
Well, nobody was trying to make sense of it there.
Yeah.
They were just there.
And so it's going to hurt for a while, and then it's going to scab over, and then something's going to happen. It's going to rip the scab off, and it's going to hurt just the same, and then it's going to scar, and then it's going to stop hurting, and then you're going to feel guilty that it stopped hurting because you kind of liked it that it hurt, because that somewhere in there was just how much the person meant to you and the love that you had for that person. And when it stops hurting as much, you wonder if you stop. This is just what it seems like. Melanie Borgen. A couple weeks ago, Bobby Joe and I were driving to the mountains to a wedding, and the IPG, which is a really aggressive form of brain cancer. And they ended up asking me to come up and do her funeral in Connecticut. And I still remember the 4 songs. I can still see just about everything from that funeral. And we're driving, and this is maybe, I don't even know, 8-10 years ago. And a song comes on from that funeral, and I start to like tear up because I can see it all. And so I texted him. I haven't texted him in 2 years. I'm like, hey man, this Mercy Me song from Maven's funeral came on, and I listened to it, and I just still got choked up. Like, I love you guys, and I hope you're doing well. And he texted me back, like, I'm so glad you sent that text, because that's how grief works, because it's never far. Because knowing that 20 years later, people still think about Ozzy is the good thing, you know? And so many times, and even like bringing up the out of control nature of that 20 years later is the good thing.
Yeah, I mean, people, when I tell them my name is, Isaac Vargas, some people remember an article about an Ozzy Vargas. And they're like, hey, you ever? I'm like, yeah, I was there, and then they feel bad, but it's been 20 years. You're like, it's okay, I mean, that wasn't okay, but it's okay, so it's always there.
Yeah. So the book of Job. We'll talk about the book of Job. We'd like the lesson on the book of Job in 2 minutes. So Job, at the beginning of the book of Job, Satan comes into the council of the gods and tells God, like, hey, Job is only blessed, he's only worshiping you because you've been good to him. Take it all away from him, and he's not going to worship you anymore. And God's like, okay, go ahead. You can do this, but not this, and puts limits on it. And then Job loses everything. And then the scene is dark, like it's black, like it's just, things are out of control. And he has 3 friends that come in, and they try and exert control over the situation. And they're like, hey, we know this happened for a reason, and it's probably because you did something bad, Job. And if you just cop to what you did bad, and no one did that to you, you know what I mean? But what they're doing is the same thing as trying to say, there's a reason for this. We can understand the reason. It's all under control. Just admit that you did it, and then God will relent. And then a younger guy, Elihu, comes in, and he's like, you guys are all idiots. And then God's like, Elihu's the one that's right about this, and just says, hey, I'm God. You're not going to understand this. And at the end of it, he's like, I had heard of you with my ears, but now I've seen you with my eyes. Do you relate to that?
Absolutely. I mean, talking with you, Job is probably my favorite book in the Bible, just because this guy. Real quick joke where you said, I imagine Job in heaven being like, now I get it. And I was like, I imagine Job in heaven being like, what was that?
Well, so that's the other part of the story, is that you can look back 20 years now and say, God was there. I don't know why. And at the end of the story, God does not tell Job, well, actually, I had this bet with Satan, and that's why he doesn't tell him that. Like, he doesn't know why. So I do wonder what happens when Job gets to heaven and reads the book of Job, like how those first few chapters go for him. Like, I kind of want to ask him that someday.
But it's like the most relatable story, because bad things happen to good people. And when you have your friends come up to you and tell you this is the reason, you're going to, you might feel a certain type of way, but I felt like him. He was like, no, I didn't do anything. What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And eventually, at the end of the story, you have to admit that God's bigger than everything, and you don't know why things happen.
And that's in my conversations with you, that just seems like what you just said. Like when you understand a little, you think you understand a lot, and then when you understand more, you realize how little you actually understand. And while God has given us things that we can be certain about, I mean, absolutely certain. I mean, this is one of the lines we talked about. There's a pastor in Atlanta named Andy Stanley who says, if you're ever going to ask these why questions, you have to qualify them with, why would God, who gave his only son for us, allow Ozzy Vargas with so much potential to die in a zip line accident, why would he allow Camp Mystic? Why would God, who loves us so much, that he gave us, like, where he can be certain of this because it happened, he sent him here, he walked among us, he died, no one can find the body, and we're the church, the remnant of that. Why would God, who we know is real and loves us, let that happen? You know, you have to qualify it that way. And Stanley also says, don't let the unexplainable get in the way of the undeniable. So I appreciate you sharing your story and being open about it. I appreciate, who I would have appreciated who you were, but who you are, and how God's grown you and growing you through all of this, and you letting him do that, and then we get to. So we get to have you as a part of our church and a part of the family and get to hang out with Isaac. So thanks for sharing that. Lord, Father, we remember this young man and his family, his mother, his sister, his cousins, and all this, is great to hear Isaac's journey. It still doesn't make sense of what happened 19 years ago. And there's just so much in life we don't know. We don't know. And we have to trust that you know, and that you're good. And I'm grateful, Lord, for the way that you've brought Isaac through this, the way you've grown his understanding of you, the measure of peace that you've given to him about what happened, that you've blessed him with a wife and his children, Lord, that you've blessed us as a church to have him around, and the way that you use his contrarian but friendly nature in conversations with people about you, and even use this experience, God, and it gives weight to those things. And pray that you'd continue to do that, Lord. And yet, I don't know, that doesn't take away the pain of what happened 19 years ago and the questions about, what could have been. God, thank you that we don't need all the answers because we have you. And because you sent your son to walk among us and show us what you're like, and to show us that you're gentle, and to show us that you love us, to show us that you're for us, to show us that when Lazarus was dead and you knew you were going to raise him from the dead, you wept. You didn't be like, hey, you guys need to pull it together and just believe. And no, you wept, knowing what was going to happen next, Lord. And that is the God that we know and we love and we serve, Lord. And so we're grateful, and we long for you and want to draw near to you, and pray, God, that our words would be a blessing to you, Lord, and that our worship of you would be a blessing to us, because it's what we're made to do. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.